there is a very specific type of stress that it doesn't actually come from your job.
Right.
It doesn't come from your daily responsibilities or your endless to-do list or even, your current immediate circumstances. It comes from something much quieter,
Hmm.
something almost entirely invisible. It is the stress of refusing to accept what has already happened.
Mhm.
And the truly tricky part is that most of us, well, we don't even realize we're doing it.
No, we really don't. Because in the moment, it doesn't feel like resistance. It feels like, I don't know, it just feels like you're thinking.
Exactly.
It feels like you are solving a problem, doing the work, taking control. But so often that relentless mental loop it's just pain in an incredibly clever disguise.
It really is. And that is exactly what we were getting into today. I'm Ethan,
And I'm Kate.
and welcome to the Living Better podcast. We want to warmly welcome you to the community and really just say thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
And hey, if you find yourself getting something valuable out of our conversations, we highly suggest you subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. We firmly believe that living longer is a science. Living better is a choice.
Such an important distinction.
Right. And today's choice is about looking at something really vulnerable. We've got a fascinating stack of sources for this episode. Recent psychological research, clinical essays on emotional regulation, and some incredibly raw case studies about what happens when the brain just refuses to let go.
Yeah, some of those case studies were pretty intense to read.
They really were. So our mission today is to explore exactly why we hold on to the past, the invisible physiological exhaustion it causes, and one deeply uncomfortable question that can shift your entire perspective on what acceptance really means.
We all have things we haven't fully let go of, every single one of us.
I mean, it might be a message you still reread from time to time, or a moment from years ago you desperately wish you could redo.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a past version of yourself that you quietly miss. Or, a situation you told everyone and told yourself that you moved on from, but secretly the background app is still running. And if you are carrying something like that right now, you are just so not alone.
Not at all. Because on the outside, nobody sees this holding on. Life just continues normally. You answer your emails, you go to work, you smile in meetings, you function perfectly.
Yeah, you look fine.
But inside, there's this background conversation constantly running, a quiet, exhausting negotiation with the past. And going through the clinical observations in our sources, there is this very powerful concept that explains this. It's called unresolved emotional noise.
There was this one incredibly honest admission from a case study that I just couldn't forget. A patient said, "I know I should be over it by now, but I still check their profile when I'm tired at night. Not because I want to go back, I don't, but because I just want to understand what went wrong."
Yeah, and what stands out in that admission isn't really the behavior itself.
Right.
It isn't about being obsessed or lacking willpower. It is the sheer exhaustion behind the habit. It's a desperate need to, understand as a substitute for actually grieving.
Yes.
Because when we look at how the brain functions, specifically the default mode network, which is the part of your brain that activates when you aren't focused on the outside world, we see that it hates open loops.
It absolutely hates them.
The brain views emotional ambiguity as a literal threat. So when a situation leaves us feeling powerless or deeply hurt, the brain scrambles for a sense of safety by trying to turn an emotional wound into, a math problem.
Exactly. Listening to that mechanism, an image comes to mind for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it feels exactly like pressing the gas pedal to the floor in a car that is completely stuck in the mud. You are just spinning your wheels, digging yourself deeper into the mud, and burning out the engine.
Exactly.
But it makes me wonder, why does the human mind actually seem to prefer the active suffering of trying to control the past, spinning those tires, over the profound vulnerability of just living with uncertainty?
Well, if we take that car analogy a step further, the roaring engine is our cognition, our endless rumination. The mind prefers spinning those wheels because thinking feels like an action.
It feels productive.
And this is the core illusion of control. The mind tricks us into believing that if we can just replay the event enough times, if we can analyze every single angle, if we can finally crack the code of why it happened, we can somehow retroactively fix it.
Right.
Or at the very least, we can build a perfect mental armor to insulate ourselves so we never, ever feel that specific pain again.
We somehow believe that understanding the past will act as a force field for the future. Like if we can just pinpoint the exact moment everything went wrong, we can guarantee it will never happen to us again.
Precisely. The logic is basically, if I understand it, it won't hurt me anymore, but that is the illusion.
Yeah.
Thinking endlessly about an outcome does not change the outcome. However, emotionally, because your brain is burning so many calories doing the mental math, it feels like you are actively doing something about your pain.
You're sweating, so you must be working out.
Exactly. You are getting these tiny artificial hits of dopamine every time you have a quote-unquote new insight about the past. But those insights don't actually move you forward.
It's a decoy. The brain just throws up this incredibly complex puzzle to solve so it doesn't have to just sit in the raw, unadulterated discomfort of reality.
Right.
And if thinking feels like a solution, then it makes complete sense that the people most likely to fall into this trap are the people who are naturally gifted at thinking.
This is the ultimate trap for high-functioning people. In psychology, there is a defense mechanism known as intellectualization. It's when you use reasoning and logic to block confrontation with an unconscious conflict or emotional pain.
Interesting.
High-functioning people are just so skilled at structuring their lives and solving problems that they instinctively apply that same utilitarian framework to their emotional processing. And, well, it fails spectacularly.
It really does. One of the essays we looked at featured a quote from a very successful, highly disciplined executive that perfectly encapsulates this. They said, "I don't think I've actually processed anything in my life. I just keep organizing my thoughts so I don't feel them."
That quote is just, it's heavy.
Organizing my thoughts so I don't feel them. That is staggering to hear because on the surface, that looks like someone who has their life completely and utterly put together.
It looks like perfectly categorized spreadsheets, a clean inbox, and a highly articulated understanding of one's own trauma. But internally, it's a really sophisticated mechanism of avoidance.
Yeah.
Control becomes a highly socially acceptable coping mechanism. Society actively rewards us for being put together, for being articulate about our struggles without actually being messy or chaotic.
We love a composed struggle.
We do. So these high-functioning individuals end up looking completely bulletproof. They can explain their past to a therapist or a friend with perfect clarity, but internally, all their emotional experiences remain entirely unprocessed. They are managing their pain, curating it, filing it away in neat little mental cabinets, but never actually feeling it.
Let me look at this from the perspective of the listener who might be taking notes right now.
Okay, sure.
Because organizing our thoughts is usually presented as a healthy, positive trait. We are encouraged to journal, to go to therapy, to map out our feelings so we aren't overwhelmed by them.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is out there doing the work of analyzing their past, how can they distinguish between genuine emotional processing and merely organizing thoughts to intellectualize and avoid the real pain?
That is a great question. The defining metric isn't the activity itself, it's the physiological and emotional state you are left in afterward.
Okay, say more about that.
True understanding, like genuine emotional processing, brings integration. It brings a profound sense of lightness. When you process something, the emotional charge dissipates. You can look at the memory, and it might still be sad, but it doesn't grip your nervous system by the throat anymore.
Right, it doesn't trigger that massive bodily response.
On the other hand, control disguised as understanding brings deep, lingering exhaustion. If you are constantly journaling about the same event, analyzing it from 12 different angles, talking about it in therapy for years, and you consistently walk away feeling heavy, tired, and fundamentally unsettled, well, you aren't processing.
Wow.
You are just meticulously rearranging the furniture in a burning house.
The effort is immense, but the fire is still raging.
Yeah,
And because you're expending all that mental energy rearranging those thoughts, that exhaustion doesn't just stay in your head,
not at all.
it bleeds directly into your physiology.
Hmm,
If we are burning all this cognitive fuel spinning our wheels, that energy has to go somewhere.
it has to.
The clinical notes in our source doc outline a wild physiological toll. When the mind avoids, the body speaks.
It absolutely does. We really have to look at the somatic side of this, how the body stores emotional resistance.
Yes, let's get into that.
When you are constantly negotiating with a reality that already happened, you are keeping your sympathetic nervous system in a chronic state of low-grade fight or flight. Your brain is sending a continuous signal to your body that the environment is unsafe because the math problem of the past hasn't been solved yet. Consequently, your nervous system never gets the biological memo that the threat has passed.
Which manifests in very real, very measurable physical symptoms.
Oh, absolutely.
The research points to profound, heavy fatigue that doesn't make any sense given how many hours you slept.
Yeah, that bone-deep tiredness.
It's the muscle armor, the tension in your shoulders, your neck, or your jaw that never quite leaves you. Even when you're supposed to be relaxing on a weekend, it's sleep that entirely fails to restore you, where your brain is still running simulations and you wake up feeling like you ran a marathon in your dreams.
Because your body is literally still actively living in a situation that your timeline has already moved past. Cortisol and adrenaline are still being dripped into your system for an argument that ended in, 2023.
That is wild to think about.
Your calendar says it's 2026, but your nervous system is still deeply entrenched in a battle from 3 years ago. Your mind refused to put it down, so your physical body was forced to carry the kinetic energy of that unresolved fight.
You know, looking at this through a cultural lens, it makes sense why we do this to ourselves. We are deeply conditioned to trust effort over surrender.
Oh, heavily.
Culturally, we love a fighter. We love the narrative of never giving up, of pushing through the obstacle until you find the answer.
Right, the grind it out mentality.
Exactly. When we are faced with an emotional wound, our default setting is to apply maximum effort. We view surrender as synonymous with giving up, with failure, or with weakness.
Yeah, we think it means losing.
But the research really challenges that. It forces us to ask if acceptance is actually a noble, enlightened form of strength, or if it is just the natural biological byproduct of what happens when our mental resistance finally collapses from pure exhaustion.
And, the ambiguity there is just so revealing. We like to elevate acceptance to this enlightened state we reach through intense mindfulness and sheer strength of will.
Like reaching nirvana or something.
Right, we treat it like a moral victory. But clinically, acceptance might not be something we learn intellectually at all. It might not be a trophy you win for being strong.
What is it then?
In many cases, it is simply the exact moment the mind gets completely and utterly tired of arguing with reality.
Wow.
You reach a point of such profound emotional and somatic fatigue that your nervous system simply drops the rope. You stop negotiating with what already is, not because you figured it out, not because you won the argument in your head, but because your biology is just too tired to fight a ghost anymore.
Dropping the rope is such a powerful visual. You aren't yielding to the other person who wronged you. You aren't saying the unfair situation was acceptable. You are simply refusing to participate in the tug of war against reality. You are letting the rope fall to the ground. But if effort and intellectualization are actually what's hurting us, and if fighting this ghost is what's destroying our nervous systems, well, we don't want to wait until we reach total biological collapse.
No, definitely not.
So how do we intentionally put down the armor?
It requires a fundamental redefinition of what acceptance actually is. We treat acceptance like a proactive decision we have to make or a positive mindset we have to adopt. We think it means saying, I am okay with this terrible thing that happened.
Which feels impossible most of the time.
Because that's not it at all. Acceptance is simply a moment of stark realization. It is the realization that this is already happening whether I resist it or not.
Right.
The event occurred, the relationship ended, the mistake was made. Your mental resistance isn't holding the reality at bay, it's only holding you hostage. When you truly grasp the futility of the resistance, something inside your physical body inevitably softens. And it softens not because your life magically changed or the past is rewritten. It softens because the internal fight finally stopped.
And to trigger that softening, to bypass those clever intellectual defenses that high-functioning people use, there is a central, deeply uncomfortable question from our sources.
Yes.
When I first read this question in the clinical essays, it actually made me wince because it cuts right through the illusion of productivity. Here's the question you have to ask yourself.
Go for it.
Am I trying to understand this, or am I trying to control my pain through understanding it?
Oof. It completely strips away the ego's defense.
It really does.
It forces you to confront your own hidden habits of mental negotiation. The next time you find yourself spiraling at 2 a.m., deep in the default mode network, rereading that old message or replaying that argument for the 100th time, pause and ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Am I genuinely seeking new information to understand this? Or am I just trying to control the ache in my chest by outthinking it?
Because 99 times out of 100, there is absolutely no new information to be found.
None.
You are just using analysis as an anesthetic. And unfortunately, it's an anesthetic that keeps the wound constantly exposed to the air.
That's beautifully said.
It is piercingly personal, too. Admitting that you are trying to control your pain requires you to first admit that you are, in fact, in pain.
And that's hard.
It is. And for a lot of people who just want to solve their lives, acknowledging raw, unsolvable emotional pain feels like a massive failure of competence.
Absolutely.
But acknowledging it is the only door out of the exhaustion.
True understanding brings integration and clarity, but control disguised as understanding just guarantees a lifetime of exhaustion. Letting go of that control doesn't feel like an action, which is why our minds reject it at first.
It feels passive.
Yeah.
It feels like a void.
Yeah.
It feels terrifyingly like doing nothing. But in reality, shifting your nervous system from resistance to observation is the most profound action you can take for your own well-being. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We want to wrap this up by speaking directly to whatever it is you might be quietly carrying.
Yeah.
If you have been living with this kind of invisible exhaustion, if your shoulders have been tense for months, if you've been meticulously organizing your thoughts to avoid feeling them, please know that you are not alone in this. Almost everyone is doing this to some degree. Most people are just exceptionally good at hiding it behind a highly productive, smiling exterior.
The goal is simply noticing where the resistance lives in your body and recognizing that the resistance isn't protecting you anymore.
It's about changing the very questions we use to navigate our inner lives. I don't want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Think about the sheer volume of physical and mental energy you have spent over the last few months or years fighting a reality that has already happened. Think about the late nights, the tense jaw, the endless cognitive loops. Now imagine if you just dropped the rope. If letting go of the past suddenly frees up all of that previously trapped spinning wheel energy. Who could you become with all that reclaimed energy tomorrow?
Oh, wow.
Where could you direct that incredible focus and power if it was no longer tethered to a ghost?
That is such an exciting prospect, reclaiming your own biological and cognitive energy from the past.
Yeah.
As you go through your week, as you inevitably notice those moments of physical tension or those familiar looping thoughts, I'll leave you with one final question from the research to ask yourself.
Let's hear it.
Where am I still fighting something that already happened?
Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We hope it brought you some clarity, some insight into how your mind works, and maybe a little bit of peace. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next episode.